Hello everyone and welcome back to this Football Manager 2017 experiment where we take a look at what would happen if the entire Premier League went bankrupt. Now, the last two parts to this experiment, we went 2 years into the future. We saw quite a lot of things happen. We saw the way the game was dealing with bankruptcy. And I think we've probably explored the majority of the issues and things that occur when you do that to a club and an entire league. And the answer to a lot of the situations was that FM would get out a magic wand and just fix a club. That happened immediately with Manchester United, who, if we have a look at their general information, no debt whatsoever now, a positive balance of £2 billion without a change of ownership or anything. The game just decided to completely fix them. They did the same with Spurs as well, so they have £2 billion estimated value, having... I think at one point they were negative £2.5 billion in debt, but now they have a positive balance of £2 billion just 2 years later, which is absolutely ridiculous. Clubs like Arsenal were hit a little bit harder. They still got a lot of loan debt, nearly £1 billion of loan debt. And if we look at their general information, you'll see they've still got that negative cash balance that we gave them right at the start, although it has gone down and they do keep restructuring their finances. So I imagine they will clean that up in good time. Other teams like Burnley still got an awful lot of debt, but I think they're one of the few teams that still haven't gone into administration at any point. So they are managing to hang on despite their dire financial situation. But there are other clubs who've managed to do things to get out of it. Swansea are another one who managed to get out of it. They still got a huge loan debt, but they've got an awfully good cash balance now, which is a little bit strange to see. It's a bit frustrating as well, that the game is just magically fixing teams without any real explanation of how or why or where that money's coming from. So that's been a bit frustrating. But what we're going to do today, instead of inching forward like we have the last two parts to this experiment, we're actually going to jump forward 5 and then 10 years into the future. So by the end of this part, we will be 12 years into the future of a bankrupt Premier League, and we'll take a look at what the finances of some of these clubs are like and who's winning the major competitions. So let's go forward 5 years and take a look at what the league looks like. Well, we are now 5 years into the future from where we left off. It's 7 years since we made all of the teams bankrupt. And interestingly, Arsenal are the current Premier League champions. They are right at the top of the pile with 95 points, a huge return in their points total, winning 30 games this season. Chelsea on 91 points would normally expect to win the title on that. So would probably Manchester City on 89 points. A 90 points total would almost guarantee you the league most seasons. But you can see this disparity at the top compared to the rest of the league, where they are running away with it somewhat. Every team from 10th or from 11th down have lost almost half their games this season, which is absolutely crazy. But it explains why so many teams have got nearly 30 victories under their belt. Now, Arsenal probably the most interesting one to start out with, because they obviously still had their loan debt, and you can see they've been struggling for a while. Third, 6th, 4th and 5th. They're now managed by Massimiliano Allegri, and if we have a look at their general information, they've still got some loan debt, £393 million, and they're in the process of a board takeover as well, which is quite interesting. If we look at their landmarks, you can see they went into administration in 2019 and came out again. Youth category lowered and then raised again, and then they failed financial fair play regulations, having already done that in the past as well, which isn't great for them. But they've since managed to recover and become Premier League champions, even if they are in a board takeover. If we have a look at their club finances, we'll see that they do have a positive balance now, and it's not a bad one either. It's where are they? They are £190 million cash up right now, with just £393 million of loan debt. So they have nearly fixed their finances despite not meeting financial fair play and also going into administration. So that's quite interesting. I think what I'll do first, rather than go through each club, is if we have a look at the stages of the season, you can see no teams went into administration this season. The year before that, no major surprises. The teams going down this time were Burnley, Fulham and Barnsley. Huddersfield, Wolves and Sunderland going down the year before that. Manchester United champions on 92 points, more reasonable finish at the top of the table. Year before that, 5 points were deducted from Stoke for a violation of budget rules. That is a new one to me. I don't understand what that means. let's have a look at their landmarks. They failed to meet financial fair play regulations. A new chairman took over. It must be just the financial fair play. They've failed the Premier League and the Europa League financial fair play, and the Premier League again the year after. So it must be something related to that. But they were deducted 5 points, which did seem to hit them a little bit. Had they not had that happen, they would have finished up in 5th place. The year before that, 9 points taken from Arsenal after they went into administration. Had that not happened, they'd have finished 4th and qualified for the Champions League again. Although I think they probably would have failed financial fair play. In 2018-19, United did win the league again at the top of the pile. They've had a bit of a history. That's obviously coming back to the first season when everybody went into administration. But it looks like administration's been pretty well avoided. Just Stoke and Arsenal getting points deductions in the last 5 years as this league really does start to look after itself and recover. If we just click on the clubs and see which ones are rich, which ones are maybe not doing so well. All of these teams are doing fine. I think Liverpool was struggling a bit, and they're still struggling. Insecure finances, still got that loan debt of 1.66 billion, which they've not managed to fix. And if we have a look at their financial situation, they do have a positive cash balance, but that debt is really weighing them down. If we have a look at their landmarks, you'll see that they failed financial fair play quite a lot, but they've had a new consortium come and take in, so they've still got this debt despite a new owner taking over the club, winning the Europa League and the UEFA Super Cup along the way as well. But that's really interesting to see that they've got this massive loan debt, one of the few clubs still to have it. If we look at their transfer history, they have still been spending money on players, bringing in Pedro Alvaro and Højbjerg just this year for 63 million. Only 10 million leaving the club. Again, 150 million pounds spent the year before that. There was a bit of an exodus a year before then, but 121 million spent a year before that. 229 million spent again the year before that. So I don't really understand their financial situation at all. I mean, they had one season where players were leaving left, right and centre, but they really have managed to hang on to their better players, which is a little bit surprising given that huge loan debt. There's clearly no pressure to get rid of their players. Spurs, we already know, had a great financial situation. Looks like West Ham are doing all right. Stoke also doing all right now. Leicester also rich. Crystal Palace, again, rich. It looks like the majority of these teams are absolutely fine now. You've got teams like Bournemouth who were really struggling at one point. They're now okay. Burnley were the team that never went into administration. If we look at their finances, they've still got their loan debt, which they're trying to pay down. So they are one of the clubs to keep an eye on if we do go 5 more years into the future. But they've still got the positive cash balance as well. Majority of teams finding ways to reduce their debt and still stay in the top tier, which is interesting to see. Now, if we take a look at Sunderland, they were one of the big teams to get relegated in the first season, and they're still in the Championship. They've been down there since the first sort of season, going down, finishing 8th, 5th, 3rd, and then getting promoted before getting relegated again. They're currently in the Championship once again. And their finances aren't looking that great. They've still got £569 million of loan debt, only worth £56 million, the club. But they've still got decent facilities, still got their stadium. And if we have a look at their financial situation, you'll see that they've still got that positive balance as well. In terms of their history, they did get relegated. They had a new owner come in, upgraded their training facilities a couple of times, their youth and training facilities. They got promoted from the Championship, relegated from the Premier League, and upgraded their facilities again. Because they were one of the clubs that sold their training facilities, I think. So they've been slowly building them up over time, but they've still got a huge loan debt weighing down on the club. And if we have a look at the Championship, what other teams are down there at the moment, if we take a look at the stages in the league table, you'll see that there's still some big teams down here. Aston Villa is still down there. West Brom are down there. Their financial situation is now rich. Still got a big loan debt, but apparently they've got a decent cash balance. Middlesbrough also down here. They've got insecure finances. General information, still a big loan debt on them as well, which has not quite been cleared away. Hull are down here. They've got insecure finances. They've got an estimated value of nothing but £532 million of debt. Their landmarks, they've not been failing financial fair play. They have had a new owner come in. They've been upgrading their facilities quite a lot, really. but they went into administration just once. They've actually had a couple of new owners who haven't been able to fix their debt situation, which is why they've been languishing down in the Championship for quite some time. But I think overall, no team has fallen lower than the Championship. They've sort of hit a level there, but the majority of teams are now doing absolutely fine financially. So the game's kind of fixed itself in a large part. A few teams still levelled with a lot of debt, but it doesn't seem to be impacting them, certainly not in the case of Liverpool. So I think what I'll do now is I'm just going to jump forward 5 more years and we'll quickly take a look at where these teams are, especially the ones that still have a big loan debt at the moment, and see if the game has managed to fix it for them. Well, it's now 2028. We're 5 more years into the future, and as you can see, the majority of the league still looking the same as it did before. Sunderland have managed to come back up as well, which is interesting to see. Now, if we go straight to the stages screen and take a roll back, you can see Chelsea winning the title, 93 points. Man City on 31 as well. No major surprises, no points deductions in there. Again, all the same. Man City winning the league this time, actually finishing level on points with Chelsea, but winning it on goal difference. Arsenal winning it the year before that. And then Man United before that, and then you've got the season where Arsenal won it, where we left off last time. So there were no more points deductions, which is quite interesting. So let's just take a look at some of the teams that had the loan debt. Arsenal still had a bit of debt in their club, which they've still got, but they're worth nearly £2 billion now. I don't think there's much point looking at their finances. Who else was struggling? Liverpool were really struggling. They are now rich, apparently. If we look at their general information, they've still got a huge loan debt, but the club's now worth more than it has in debt, which is quite interesting. They have finished runners-up in the FA Cup. They've had a new owner come in, I think. Even after losing John Henry, they've had another new owner come in 3 years later after they failed financial fair play. They've not failed it since. So the club may be in a better position as a result of the value of the club going up. Other teams that struggle have been Sunderland. They're now secure in their finances. Still got a huge loan debt though, but they're worth a bit more money now that they've got Premier League cash coming in. Again, everything looking pretty much the same here. Certainly no points deductions or problems for them since getting their new chairman, Massimo Cellino, come in, which is quite funny. Otherwise, there weren't any other teams, I don't think, here that are worthy of a look. I think the Championship might be a bit more interesting to take a look at, because there are a few teams down there who were struggling a little bit. So we've got teams like Bournemouth, who are now still insecure 12 years later. They've just not been able to clear the debt. They've got it down to half the level it was, but they are still really struggling to get rid of it 12 years on. Hull probably in a similar situation. They've got insecure finances and have had them for a decade, but that loan debt is really far down now. They've done well getting that down to just 144 million. If we look at their landmarks, you can see that they keep getting new owners in. But they did go into administration just 3 years ago, so once again slipping into administration, and then were relegated from the Championship as well, getting promoted from League One just last season. So Hull fell all the way down into League One, where they were stuck for a little while, I think. They got relegated to the Championship. They were in League One for 4 years before managing to bounce back up. So they were really hit hard, but the new owners seem to have taken care of the debt situation. Middlesbrough, the other team who are down in and around that position, still got insecure finances as well. If you look at their general information, they've still got nearly £500 million of debt in their landmarks. I don't think they were relegated. They've been the fine, but they've had a couple of new owners come in as well. So these teams are just switching owners all of the time. Anytime that they're struggling financially, I think that is the game's solution, is to bring in a new owner, pay off a bit more of the debt, and continue until it needs to happen again. Just going to have a quick look at League One, make sure there's nobody down here who wasn't there before, but it seems pretty safe to me. I think most of the teams, other than Hull, have managed to avoid dropping into the third tier, but it's quite interesting that Hull did fall that far down and that a few teams still haven't managed to remedy their financial situation, whereas the majority of teams were just given this magic wand. Liverpool still got a huge amount of debt which they've not been able to clear, so that's all been quite interesting to take a look at. I will just have a quick look at the Champions League for you, see if any English team has been winning that recently. The current holders are Manchester United. You can see it's been in Manchester the last 3 years, and United managed to win it twice in a row earlier on. But otherwise, it's pretty much Manchester, Madrid and Barcelona who have been dominating the Champions League. Nobody else has won it since 12-13 when Bayern won it. So that's quite interesting. I think the English teams have been doing quite well in the Europa League as well, if we can get that up. Current holders West Ham, Spurs, Liverpool won it. Liverpool won it again before that. Arsenal won it. Chelsea won it. United won it. So English teams not damaged at all in Europe. If anything, they're doing even better because so many of them have been given this magical cash fix, which means that there's more money available. So that's quite interesting as well, that this really has had almost no effect on anybody except for Hull, who got relegated down to League One. Everybody else has pretty much carried on business as usual. The teams getting relegated to the Championship were the teams you'd expect to get relegated to the Championship, the likes of Sunderland and Middlesbrough. So very interesting to see the way this has unfolded. It's not quite gone as I expected. I would have liked to see at least one team completely fall apart, but that just didn't happen at all. But if you've enjoyed this experiment, do let me know. Leave a like on the video. I have got the idea for an experiment where I'm going to see if I can actually and properly destroy a club in this game so that they can't just build back, but we'll have to see how that transpires, because I expected a club to get destroyed through this process, but it just didn't happen. So if you want to see that experiment, do subscribe to the channel as well so you see it come up when I release it. But until next time, see ya.